Hey, thanks for stopping by the show. This will be a fun one for you. I had an opportunity to sit down with Kyle Pike and learn a little bit about the history of the Panic discussion board community. Kyle worked as a radio DJ and ran a radio station up in High Point, North Carolina when he was in college. He worked at Ziggy's up in High Point, so had a lot of interaction with bands. We talked about Edwin McCain, Bloodkin, Vic Chestnutt, Disco Biscuits, Goose, Panic. He's a wealth of information as it pertains to the music industry more broadly. And we had a good time talking about the imminent demise of the human race as we know it via the continued advancement of AI and machine learning. It's really an episode for the whole family. Come on in. I hope you enjoy. Kyle Pike, good to meet you.
Yeah, I don't know your name. You're not Henry Parsons. He died a long time ago.
People will type that to me on Facebook, and I'll say, fucking Danny, I go on vacation for 1 week without my phone, and suddenly I'm dead, and he's written a song about it. So I'll give you a little background on me. So I grew up in Athens, moved there from Wisconsin when I was 5. So I moved to town 1980 in the throes of a Sugar Bowl with Herschel Walker. So I've been a big Bulldogs fan since then. Parents were artists and musicians. My dad actually was the one who designed that that famous Panic shirt that's been around forever. That they call it the snowflake now, but it's actually like a mandala on the back. You know?
Yeah.
He was the one that actually originally designed that shirt and later sold that design back to Brown Cat. But anyway, so my folks were tied into the scene, and of course REM B-52s were going nuts in the 80s, and I didn't get turned on to Panic. I was kind of a late bloomer. My best friend Josh Love was actually the one that turned me on to them. He had given me the Everyday CD, and but I was not. I tell you all of that to say I wasn't super active on like SpreadNet, Digital Panic. I knew what Everyday Companion was. I don't know what the Panicle was, and Sandbox. I knew what Sandbox was, and actually volunteered a show for that one time. But which of those platforms were you involved with?
Well, the Sandbox is. Are you not referring to the same thing as PanicFreaks.org?
Is that what it was called? Okay, my bad.
Yeah. So that was mine. So really, the Panic discussion board community really started with official boards on Panic's site, and there was a yellow board and a green board. Now, John Fox was actually the admin of the yellow board, and the green board was somebody. I don't remember his name now. I can't believe I'm spacing on important names for this interview. But anyway, they were people that actually worked for Brown Cat, right? And the time of the green board, it got to a point where there was a lot of like threats of violence, like all the typical nasty shit that comes along with it, discussion communities, to the point where schools was like, shut it down, get rid of it, right? Mm-hmm. So he shut it down, and the community panicking, no pun intended, went to this platform called Easy Board, and this guy named Davey Boy Crockey was the moderator of the Easy Board at first. He set the whole thing up. So he set it up not only to be a Panic board, but also have a board for the Allman Brothers, Grateful Dead, and Fish, and all the things like it currently all does, so somewhat does to this day, right? Mm-hmm. And it was a jam band discussion community. And EasyBoard is a free platform, and we grew to be the largest board on EasyBoard. We grew to so Panic, they were on EasyBoard for a while, and then it got to a point where they were told they had so much traffic they would have to start paying. So instead of doing that, and by that time Davey Boy Crockett had gone by the wayside or retired, people just drift apart away from message boards. They don't necessarily always have to announce a grand exit. But and the moderators at the time were John Murray, whose handle was Herald of the Rocks, and Michelle DeLima, who her handle I think was Swamp Woman. And those two both had not enough technical skills to migrate from a free platform to a hosted V-Bulletin site. So I was recruited really as a technical person. And also around this time, also was Keith Crabtree was pretty instrumental in helping me technically find a host and all that. And he had he was the moderator and owner of digitalpanic.org, Keith Crabtree. I think his name online is Crabicus. So he and I were sort of the ones that set up panicfreaks.org. It was his own self-hosted message board community when they had to leave EasyBoard because EasyBoard said, you have way too much traffic. This much traffic is going to have to start paying. We were self-hosted, and that was around 2004, I guess, is when we migrated. And the community was, realistically, I think there was about 1,500 and 2,500 members all along. But, a crew of constant posters around 300, pretty much throughout time. I think when we were on Panic Freaks, the stats that I used to run, the most users online was at one time was like 1,200, and that was right after Anne Marie Calhoun's performance, and at Lee Park. That was the most users we ever had online. Even deaths and firings didn't bring as much as people getting online to talk about that. Wow, I think that was a pretty significant event in Panic history, even though people don't really think about it, is somebody who on YouTube was playing Panic covers that blew everybody away, got to go up on stage. And that's like a huge transition and something that not a lot of bands of their size have really done that. But some, they've ended up becoming like members of the band or drummers or whatever. Jason Newsted from Metallica, perfect example. But
or Jason Isbell, roadie.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Well, take me back, and I. That's all really good. I'm scribbling notes over here feverishly as we're talking, but.
Okay, so anyway, that's sort of the history of it. And then we moved to, and part of it was, along the way, our community sort of, and it's splintered. We're not the only Panic message board. There were always others. There's always Fishhook. There's always a sizable community on Fishhook, sizable community on Fantasy Tour. And then there's Team Panic, which is another one that was sort of started from the castaways from our board. As I think the level of decorum one has to maintain as a group is there's different levels, right, of the internet, right? Pretty much all across the board, and all online communities suffer from the same situation, right? And the same negatives, same positives. So yeah,
for sure.
I'm all over the place.
Well, no, you're good. Take me back. So where are you from originally?
Oh, I'm from Maryland. Okay. I live in Baltimore now. I've been in Baltimore since 2002 or so. I grew up in the DC suburbs. Went to college at High Point in North Carolina. When I was there, I pretty much ran the radio station when I was there the entire time. And also helped book a lot of shows at Ziggy's. And Jay Stevenson of Ziggy's was a good friend of mine. So my first show was at Ziggy's. My third or fourth show, I stood on the side of the stage pushing Jay's wheelchair at LJBM Coliseum. So like that was my first show was 5/24/92 at Ziggy's. I know it was that night because I knew Can't Find My Way Home, even though I wasn't familiar with Panic. And that was a very widely traded show. I'm pretty sure I recorded it on cassette, but I'm pretty sure it never went anywhere. Might even got recorded over like a year or two later. Because that was like a bootleg CD that you could buy. And I don't know who did that, but I was definitely there that night, and I was definitely taping that night, as were a couple other people. So I'm not sure how that leak got out, but it wasn't me. I was recording to a D5, straight from soundboard. that belonged to the radio station. My thing when I was in college and running that radio station was I would often go to shows just before, like just to go up, drive up in the afternoon during sound check, and then go backstage and then record legal IDs. You know what that is for, like a radio station?
No.
Where you get somebody at the start to say, I have a D5, a mic, and a little note card that says, "Hi, I'm blank from blank, and you're listening to Kyle on 92.3, right?"
Love it.
And I would go do that. So I would often not even go to the show, or not even stick around for the show. Just go barge my way in backstage. I fucking worked there, technically at Ziggy's, right? But,
Yeah, right.
I would knock sometimes. But, one time I just barged my way backstage and Jewel was getting dressed.
Oh, shit.
And had just pulled a sweater over them titties. And she was like,
who the fuck are you? Get the
Edwin?
fuck out of here.
She was opening for Edwin McCain. I'm like, "Where's Edwin?" She's like, "This is my green room." I'm like, "Oops."
That's fantastic.
But along the way, then when I was running the radio station in High Point, we got really close to Dave Matthews Band and everything. And both of them were pretty smallish at the time. But the first time I met Panic was backstage because I did the whole thing at Ziggy's, but I didn't really interact with the band at all. And then like my third or fourth show, I think it was my fourth show, was 3/17/94 in Winston at Lawrence Joel Veterans Memorial Coliseum. And that show, I was pushing Jay around. It was he put it on. He was a promoter, but he's like, "Hey Kyle, will you take me to the side of the stage?" And I'm like, I guess leave my whole fraternity behind. But then at Browns Island was later that summer was Browns Island in Richmond. And we had everything play at High Point the day before. We put on the show. It was supposed to be an outdoor show, and then rain came. So Jay let us move it to Ziggy's in the afternoon. But that night he had Junior Brown playing that night. And so we all had to be the hell out of there by 6:00. And it was also the first day that they got the hard liquor license. And we drank all the hard liquor before the Junior Brown show. But it was everything, and Purple School Bus, and like a bunch of other dead, like North Carolina 1994 bands, So the next day, they all like hung out with us, stayed with us and everything. And the next day was Browns Island. And we rode up on Everything's Motorhome to Browns Island. And we get there like backstage, and Panic was sound checking at the time. And a couple of guys from DMV were trying to like open the doors to Panic's bus to like snoop. And I'm like, "Oh, this is great." I even wrote about that in like the school newspaper and shit. Lassard kicking a hacky sack around while Leroy was trying to get on a Panic's bus to see what kind of shit they got that was better than theirs. Do
you know Mike?
And while Panic was sound checking.
Do you know Mike Wilker?
Yeah, I know Mike Wilker. He's great.
He's a good friend of mine. He's got some pretty fucking funny stories about. I won't go into it because it's, I won't share shit he told me, but he's got some pretty fucking crazy stories about the promoters and stuff and access to the band. Anyway, I digress, but that's very cool. So you're in. I
just sort of never really had any access for a very long time, but I'll tell you the best backstage story I have, guess, is it was 11/13/01. And we did the whole run, that whole fall run. And the next night was in Towson. That night was in Philadelphia. That was supposed to be played at the La Chorus Center, but they didn't sell enough tickets, so they moved it to E Factory. And so they're playing at the E Factory, and I was taping, and I was there with my buddy Ian and Jimmy and John. And we all rode up that night, and we were riding back after the show. It's Philly. We're in Baltimore, of course. And so the taper section was underneath the VIP balcony. And I go as I'm getting my deck, and I was not a taper that sat there and babysat or even sat in the taping area. I would set up in the section if I had to, because I was really lazy. I hate taping. And so I left my shit in the section. I didn't come back until after the show. I come back after the show, and there is a pass that had somebody had probably just ripped it off and thrown it off their body, and it landed right on top of my taping bag. So I'm like, "Hey guys, I just got a backstage pass. I'm going backstage." And they're like, "Okay, we're going outside. You better not be too long," type of thing. And I'm like, of course I'm thinking, whatever. My friends are outside the electric factory. They're going to be out there till their money runs out. And hopefully that's a little while. So I go backstage, and it's 2001. It's November of 2001. So timeline wise, match that up. And I see Doug Irby and his girl at the time, and I'm talking to them, and then they all come back, and Dave's got like a harem, and Mikey comes and sits with us, and he remembered me from years ago, and then he said, I'll tell you what, Kyle, he's like, if you like Budweiser, why don't you go grab yourself a Budweiser, because I got pancreatitis, and the rider still calls for a case of Budweiser from me every night, and I can't drink anymore because I got pancreatitis. Okay. And he told me he had pancreatitis like 3 times in one sentence. Uh-huh. And it was so funny. It was like the next day, and of course I told the story on my board, you know. And so the next day, somebody was like, I think he told you that because he knew who you were, and he knew what you're going to do. And but anyway, it was great. We got high and had a couple great conversations, mostly about 9/11 and shit. And you don't remember 11/13/01? Mm-hmm. That it's in Philadelphia, and that whole playlist, including the Breathing Slow that hadn't been played in a long time, really is sort of like plane crashy, you know, and sort of has a little hidden message there if you believe it. If you're fucking crazy Jackie and you believe there's hidden meanings in all set lists, then maybe no, it definitely seemed that way, especially after they had some set lists that were like in Boston a few nights earlier. There was like all animals and shit. Uh-huh. They were fucking with set lists. And also, I would have to say there's a lot of context to the set list in Atlantic City, the show before, 2 nights before, mm-hmm. because they played Bow-Legged and Lowrider and Pusherman. Mm-hmm. And that was, and you know, it was straight in the heart of Atlantic City. Mm-hmm. I think that wasn't unintentional.
Oh God, I'm gonna get in trouble for the Jackie thing. I don't know the entire story about that, but
you're gonna have to edit that out. She's a dear friend of mine. I was at her 50th birthday with 3.
All right, very good. I'll leave it be then. Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah, and it's funny you say Budweiser.
You was a dear friend of mine before all that happened. I can give you plenty of inside scoop if you want.
Oh yeah, we'll have to talk later.
Yeah, when you're not recording. No, yeah, no. I'm glad. I'm glad that didn't break up the band.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, so I think you mentioned earlier that have you always been in radio? Did you start that in college?
No, I mean, I fell into it. Oh. I fell into it. It was crazy. It was like first weekend of college, and I'm out at Hyman was a lot smaller school then, and the scene small as far as, and I didn't come from jam bands at all. I hated that music. Mm-hmm. I grew up with DC hardcore. Mm-hmm. Going to Rites of Springs for a show and stuff, like, you know, Bad Brains at the 930 Club, like, you know, totally into hardcore. And Bad Brains and then a couple of people that were associated with the punk scene really got us into reggae. Mm-hmm. So my transition was like punk, like started with like some new wave from MTV and shit. Mm-hmm. Then I got way into hardcore, and then I got and also REM too. Yep. And U2, all that type of shit. And then a reggae phase right before I came to college. And I did not like the Grateful Dead at all. Mm-hmm. At all. And I got to college and I found out that everybody that smoked pot and was cool and was the person that I would hang out with back in Maryland all listened to the Grateful Dead all the time. And it was horrible. But I was at a party and this dude, John Smith, put on some Clash, you know? Uh-huh. And I'm like, I love you. And we started talking and he's like, I'm a senior. I run the radio station. Please come up there. He's like, it's funny because the only other seniors that were involved in radio my freshman year in college are all my Grateful Dead friends, and they all go to Panic, and I see them all the time. But they were like, the only place we met was like the Neil Young fucking shit that was coming out in 1991, you know, like that was it. Neil Young was the only place I met with all those Deadheads. And except then Fish came on and I heard Fish, and Fish was like, wow, I like this. And you like this. Mm-hmm. This is great. And so, and then, but my exposure to Panic was all around the radio. Was funny, and it's all about bad first impressions. Is I got Space Wrangler sent on vinyl from the label. I opened it and I put it in the metal bin for the metal guy to check out. We had one guy that liked metal that had one show, 1 hour a week, and it sat in the metal until I was at a townie's house buying weed. Mm-hmm. And Townie was playing every day. So a year. All of 1991, I had Space Wrangler. I didn't listen to it. I think Mom's Kitchen came out in that time frame as well. Mm-hmm. But so maybe he was listening to a tape, but I heard Wonderin'. And I was like, I love this. What is this? Is this the Allman Brothers? You know? And he's like, wow, this is Widespread Panic. I was like, get the fuck out of here. And he played some more. I could have sworn it was every day that he was playing, though. So, you know, a year or so elapsed in between me throwing it in the metal bin and me hearing this at a guy's house, because it definitely was Wonderin'. So I guess that was the first song that hooked me, quote unquote. I immediately went back and found the Wonderin' single at the radio station and started playing it. And then Every Day came out, and then I was way into it. I also remember immediately going back to my fraternity house with the Wonderin' single and playing it on the deck and being like, and turning my whole fraternity onto it the same day that I had that epiphany. So I had that epiphany, and I went back and shared it with like 20 people, and then we put Wonderin' in heavy rotation on the radio station as well.
What a great time to be alive.
And that was probably, I would say that was all in very late 91 or early 92. And I don't know the right dates for when they released Wonderin' single and Every Day, but that seems to line up because first show was 5/24/92. Went with the whole fucking skirt.
Yeah, so, I wrote all these dates down. I'm gonna have to go back and refresh my memory. Yeah, I think I may have said earlier, a buddy of mine gave me the Everyday CD, and that's what got me hooked. Of course, Diner was my shit, and that whole album was really good. He was a drummer, or still is a drummer, and so picking up the pieces and so some of that stuff was kind of his jam, and Henry Parsons, of course, which I snagged. But yeah,
I also backed into them through Vic as well, because way into Vic. We had him out to our radio station to do a guest DJ, which I also had Edwin McCain do that. Rod Henry do that. A bunch of people had come to do that. And it's funny, I have run into people later in life in the music industry who are like, you remember that interview you did with me on the radio?
No, get away from me, weirdo. What?
I don't know people like somebody somewhat connected to the truckers. Rodney Henry. I've known him for a very long time, and he's like, you don't remember having the Popes down to your fraternity in High Point? And I was like, no, I don't remember that. And he's like, and he gave me some very specific information about our house, which made me, it was when I was bringing the trucker show that he guested on, and he's like, you don't remember me? And I'm like, I remember you from Rockville, but I don't remember having you come down to my radio station at all. But he got it all right,
Patterson Hood.
Like, we're smoking weed in a little fucking lobby, and there's a 5-foot bong at the fraternity house. I'm like, yeah, that's all. You got it.
That's fantastic. I think the statute of limitations is passed. No, Patterson Hood's coming to the Georgia. I'm about 30 minutes from Athens now, and he's coming end of the month. So I'm going to go check him out. I don't want to say I've forgotten about drive-by truckers, but I had set them aside mentally, and only recently, in the past month or so, did I go back and realize just how hard those guys went in the paint for as long as they did. And of course, they had a residency in Athens. And
I really haven't listened to them much in a while, and I'm sleeping on their shows now. But there was a point in time where, because a couple of my friends grew up with Matt DeFilippis, who was their sound guy for a very long time, and now is the house engineer at the Warner Theater in D.C. So he was our connection to them, and
man, that Decoration Day album is, for people that have not given Drive-By Truckers a chance, go throw that on. It rocks from cover to cover. It's really good.
They played a lot of the Team Richmond. Yeah. They played a lot of the Team Richmond events early in their career, so we got to know that. I mean, first time I heard of the Drive-By Truckers was because of Jerry Joseph. They opened for Jerry Joseph in New Year's Eve 2001 run. And Frank Rinaldi included their set on the tapes that got traded as filler on the Jerry Joseph. So everybody on the Jerry Joseph list that asked for the shows on CD got exposed to the Drive-By Truckers, and that's how I got exposed to them. And then not even a year later, they're playing a private party in Richmond that our friends put on, and the last night Jason drank was one of those Team Richmond Paradise Garage parties. And that's like, now we've had video of that for a very long time. We're not allowed to share it, but now it's like part of the whole EO special about Jason, where his manager shared it. It was crazy, you know. Very last night of him drinking before he went to rehab.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he talked about and Cover Me Up, where he says that night in Richmond I was hot. He he just got pissed drunk.
Oh, got really drunk. Have you watched Have you watched Movie Box yet? That movie about him?
No. I watched the HBO documentary.
Oh, got it.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I think it's called Music Box.
Yeah, they play that shit. Yeah, they play it. They play it.
So good.
Yeah. But so that's how we sort of got exposed. Got to see a lot of those shows. The last one of those, the first one was like Jerry, and then there was like Patterson and Shauna and Jason one year, and then we had Bloodkin one year, Marcus King one year. This year was White Denim, just a couple months ago.
I'm an idiot.
It's a great private party that
I'm an
Richmond put on.
That movie was called Running with Our Eyes Closed. I don't know what the hell I was thinking about.
Oh yeah. I saw that. Running with Our Eyes Closed. I'm
so stupid. Yep. Yeah, it's funny you bring up Bloodkin too, because they, they were a staple in town for a long time, and I think I told this story one other time. I would go see them at the Georgia Bar. I remember one time being in, and they didn't even play on stage. They would just set up on the floor in the middle of the room. And I remember one of the first times I ever saw them play, Eric was using a pocket knife as a slide for the guitar, and I was like, if shit goes down in here, I'm sticking close to this guy. I was like, he's fucking hardcore, but what a great band they were. And of course, don't have to tell any Panic people the effect that they had on our scene, but damn shame to lose Danny at such a young age, because man, they could rock it too. Yeah,
my wife booked them to play my 50th birthday party up here in Baltimore, and it was great.
Oh, no kidding.
Tiny in 2019. Okay. October 2019, and it was great. It's funny though, Danny being Danny, at the end of the night, he's like trying to bump it up 1,000. Like there were 20 emails deciding price, and he's like, is that blah blah blah? We're like, no. It was good time. Yeah, that was great. It was actually in an art gallery and a co-working space, which
cool.
had lots of, called Function. It was primarily a co-working space, but it also was an art gallery. Blue laws being what they are in Baltimore City, art galleries can have alcohol served at events without a liquor license. So it's a nice little loophole.
Nice.
And right next to an art gallery that also occasionally tattoos people and is definitely not a tattoo parlor, right? So it was like an art gallery. There were big sculptures there and everything. Set up folding chairs for us to watch the music, but nobody did that. We all just stood behind the rows of folding chairs, and it was great time.
Got drunk.
And yeah.
Well,
definitely.
What are you doing these days? I mean, you don't have to say who your employer is, but what's keeping you busy?
Well, I'm a software developer. I've always been a software developer by trade.
Excellent.
I graduated from college, and so my parents were software people. I'd done written code and programming, as it was called then, all through my life. I got to High Point, and their computer science department was a joke. The teacher couldn't help me with my C program that didn't compile, and so I just sort of went the other way. And it also wasn't cool when I was a kid to be in. It was nerdy as shit, and I was a nerd, and I was picked on for being a nerd.
Same.
And I didn't want to be more nerdy. So I got out of college, and I wanted to go in the music business because I'd run a radio station for 4 years. I was deep in there. I'd barged in backstage and talked to everybody who was anybody, right? And Wayne Coyne was my buddy, whatever. And I was going to go. So I did that for a little while, which means I did promotions for a few labels for a while, sold some CDs out of the trunk of my car for a label called Aware Records, which really broke a lot of bands in the 90s that people aren't aware that got broke by them, were like the Verb Pipe and fucking Matchbox 20 and shit like that.
What was it? Aware
they
Records?
Also had, Aware.
Okay, I'll look it up.
Yeah, they also had a lot of artists sign at the time that were big at the time, like Edwin McCain, the Samples, things like that. And then so I did a little promotion, but that didn't really pay any bills. And then that was right around when I graduated, right around when the web was invented, right? And so 92, 93, it was invented, and it wasn't really a thing. Nobody was making web pages yet. But when I graduated, that's what people were starting to do. And that was easy for me. There was no code involved in web pages in 1994 at all. JavaScript wasn't even a thing yet. But I already knew how to Photoshop. I'd already been making flyers. I'd already made a few album covers, right? So that was already a skill I had developed just on my own without any art school. And so I could web easy. And I did that. So I was a web designer when that was a thing for quite a while, and then moved into more programming when that became a thing. It was like, oh yeah, I do actually know Visual Basic. So and then became my focus was on the Microsoft stack on .NET, mostly because of where I landed. And so a lot of the places that I worked early in my career, I worked for WeatherBug when they were before it was WeatherBug, and actually designed that software for Windows. And then they got really spammy. But through my time there, I actually wrote the first mobile weather app, the very first one. Before Weather.com had one, we had one, and I wrote it in WAP, and it took about 3 days to write. It was great. It would tell you what the weather was like where you were standing, which is pretty useless to most people. But anyway, if it doesn't forecast right, it's pretty useless. And then, so I worked there for a while, and then moved around a little bit, and then even through Panic Freaks and through At a Disco Biscuit Show, I met my first wife, and she lived in Baltimore. I was still living in the D.C. area, so I made my way up to Baltimore around 2002. Yeah, so that's sort of my trajectory of where I was at. Moved to Baltimore around 2002, then moved in, and then worked for a while at a company called Amtote. They are a tote. It runs a racetrack. So there's 3 totes that run horse racing. Sort of take all the bets, calculate the odds, all that stuff, payouts, odds, bets, calculating it every minute. Really old school stuff, but cool stuff. And I actually built the wagering platform for the New York City OTB. I babysat that for quite a few years. I jumped around a little bit more, worked a lot of the big Baltimore tech employers. And then for a few years, I was working for a company called Catalyte, where I was actually teaching coding. And when I had kids and they made their way up to middle school, and there was like middle school, like coding clubs or robotics clubs, I was always involved in those, always ran those. So I knew I liked teaching, but I knew I definitely didn't want to be a teacher. That's like the worst job in the world.
Yeah, they're underpaid and underappreciated for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And they get paid less and appreciated less every year. Mm-hmm. And now they're even being told what they can and can't teach more and more every year.
It's ridiculous.
The worst job in the world, probably way worse than cleaning. And I love them and respect them. But God, we're terrible to them. But anyway, I work for a company called Catalyte, where they upskill. They basically take people who pass an aptitude test, and they teach them how to be software developers, teach them full stack development in about 6 months, and then turn them loose as developers working for companies. So that was really cool. I enjoyed doing that for a couple of years. And now I'm currently working for a company that makes lab reactors and things like that. Mettler Toledo, the largest manufacturer of lab equipment and scientific equipment like skills. And I work managing a team of developers here in the U.S. that are building software for lab reactors. Our main customers are big pharma, and both Pfizer and Moderna have said that without our ALRs and our spectrum analyzer equipment and data and processing software, they wouldn't have been able to come up with the COVID vaccine in the time they did.
Well, yes. And it's interesting you bring up those junior programs that are focused on teaching coding to younger kids, because I did get an email or something from this. Anyway, I can't remember where I read it, but I remember thinking I need to get my daughter involved in that because she's very active.
Yeah, I don't know.
No?
5 years ago, I would have been able to go off on a tangent about that, but now I'm going to say that there's no way that your kid that hasn't entered a program yet is ever going to be able to code better than GPTs.
Oh, good point.
Yeah, I mean, so here's how crazy it is. Oracle is a software company.
Yeah.
That is all they make. They don't make anything else. Now, they do make terminals and shit because they bought Micros, but by and large, Oracle is a company that makes software. Mm-hmm. They've said that they don't think they'll need software developers after 2027.
I didn't even think about that.
So if Oracle won't need software developers after 2027, how is Mettler Toledo or Global Payments or any of these other companies that I've worked for going to need software developers in that time frame? If the software companies are predicting the AI will write itself and will only need managers to deal with it, prompt engineers, things like that. It's just changing. It's morphing. So yeah, actually, what I would say is, if for somebody who's starting to get into it now, is focus entirely on AI, focus entirely on prompt engineering, which is something that people aren't aware that prompt engineering is now like the biggest thing, because no matter what it is you do for a living, AI is going to have a part in it.
Yeah.
And so people have to figure out how to work it, how to wrangle the AI. And this is just baby AI. I mean, when we're talking about GPTs and large language models. This is AI that was designed to replace customer service agents.
Yeah, yeah.
That's all it was designed for. It was designed to be a next generation help bot.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it was designed to do. The fact that it can do all this other shit, like create videos and make music and write code and all this, is it learning. And with this, once we start designing AIs, specifically designing AIs to do specific tasks, which we're sort of there now, where you can create GPTs that are single task. And that's really what's happening in 2024 in AI development right now, is people designing domain specific GPTs. But I follow it really heavily because I feel like my life depends on it more than other people.
Yeah.
Because I'm in the software sphere. I think there's going to be plenty of industries where they get decimated by AI before software does, but I definitely don't see a lot of value in a junior developer.
Okay. Well,
I mean, I've got interns that just started yesterday in college, and I'm like, and there's also plenty of sectors. There's the legal sector, which really hasn't even gotten to phase one yet of any sort of automation. There's government. And government's going to move really slow. But government doesn't move as slow as people think, because Copilot's already been okayed by a lot of federal government agencies. And Copilot is GitHub, Microsoft's AI coding assistant.
Wow.
And, I wouldn't necessarily say learning coding is a great direction to take, but learning AI, learning machine learning. Yeah, you definitely have to focus in the next gen. You can't.
Okay.
Learning Java now, it's stupid.
Yeah.
So stupid. But I think we're gonna be the people. There's so many people who are gonna be. It's just gonna be unbelievable. I mean, I really do think. I don't know.
No,
this is still on the record. I'm not going to go all out, but I mean, we could be looking at famine between automation and AI taking out jobs and taking out entire sectors of jobs. It's crazy. So anyway, yeah,
it's been on my mind.
There probably shouldn't be going. They should be. You know what? Young people out there should be learning how to fix plumbing, how to make plumbing, roofing, farming, like skilled labor.
Yeah.
Skilled labor, absolutely. I can't believe people aren't doing that. Because it's like Office Space, the classic Office Space. Where he stops doing the IT job, the middle manager of IT, like I am now. I'm basically him. He quits that job to work construction because nobody ever asked if you got a case of the Mondays.
Such a good movie. Well,
I'm back in the office, which is crazy.
Oh, you are really?
Yeah, I haven't been in an office since the pandemic started. Yeah, since February of 20.
Oh,
yeah.
you haven't been. I thought you said you're back in an office. I was like, what?
I am.
Oh.
2 months.
Oh,
yeah,
shit.
my job that I just started a couple of months ago is on site. It's 3 days a week on site, but
That's not
I've got interns right now, 5 days a week. Things like that. So yeah, it's interesting going back to it. My job started the day before the Key Bridge collapse, and that doubled my commute.
Oh,
so
God.
my first day, they're like, "How's the ride in?" I'm like, "It's great." The next day, I'm like, "Fuck you."
Yeah, I was in. I actually just got laid off at the end of April, but I for the past handful of years, I've been in transportation and logistics, and watching the fallout and there's nothing funny about that incident, but watching people scramble to try to figure out how to reroute freight that was destined for the port of Baltimore was kind of funny. There,
Oh wow! I have some friends in that. Yeah,
it's crazy.
I know people involved in freight. Yeah.
Well,
crazy stuff.
I always ask people, just because I love music, of course. Still, don't get to listen to it as much as I used to. But what kind of stuff are you listening to these days? You got anything new you can turn me on to?
Oh well, I tend to try to stay on the edge of new music. So I make a Spotify playlist every Friday of all the new albums that come out that aren't too pop, too metal, too country, whatever.
What's the name of your
mostly
playlist?
focusing on our sphere. It's every week is the name of the week. I'll send you my link to my Spotify because I make a new one every time.
Okay.
And so I do that, and then I try to listen to it throughout the week on shuffle and pick up certain things. So I would say nothing groundbreaking. For one, it took me a very long time to get King Gizzard. My friends all pushed it on me, sent me the record, said you got to listen to it. It wasn't until I discovered a playlist that band had made called Chill Giz, which will make anybody who doesn't really like it and isn't a huge fan of metal love that band.
Chill Biz?
Chill Giz by King Gizzard, yeah.
Okay.
Chill Giz, yeah. It's like all like their chill songs, their spacey songs.
Oh, Chill Giz.
And they're amazing.
Okay.
I'm a big Goose fan. Took me a while. It wasn't until Goosemas last year blew me away. One of the best runs by any band I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. So I'm way into that. I'm way into listening to their new stuff with Cotter. He sounds great.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any background on what happened with Ben?
No, and I just watched the Andy Frasco podcast where it was so great because he tried to ask him 50 times. Did you see that?
No, I have to go watch that.
You have to watch it not even because of the Goose stuff, but also before it, he has Karina Reichman on, and she tells the whole story of the Stagecoach Beyonce fiasco, which is just hilarious and great. I don't know if you're a fan of hers. I'm a big fan of her solo stuff too, though.
What's her name?
We love going to see her play. Karina Reichman. She plays bass for Marco Benevento.
Okay.
So the story is Karina, her friend, Katie, I don't know who Katie is. Katie somehow got booked to do a DJ set at the Stagecoach Festival, opposite Post Malone and Willie Nelson sets. So she asked Karina if she wants to help her out. And Karina's like, hell yeah, that happens to be the only weekend I'm not playing with somebody. And so she books it, but they're booked as Backwoods Barbie. Well, somehow the internet decided, based on the Cowboy Barbie fucking record and shit, that was a code, that was a secret Beyonce set. So it got out on the internet that it was going to be the secret Beyonce set. Everybody at this Stagecoach Festival held at the same Polo Grounds, same place as Coachella, Indio, same place as Fish had their festival at. Basically, everybody's there. She's like, there's like 200,000 people out there waiting. And with them, they play Single Ladies as they're coming out. The Single Ladies, and just the crowd roar, And then they come out and they're like, hey, she's us, two white girls and Daisy Dukes, playing pop country hits with BPM,
Oh my God.
Remixing pop country. So anyway, her story about that is way better. And I do love the Andy Frasco podcast. But he has Goose, and he rips it right out of the gate. He's like, I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off. What the fuck happened? And they just sit there for a minute like, so many stories. I have no intel whatsoever. Apparently somebody's girlfriend was involved or something. I don't know.
Oh boy.
But I think they tried to play it as it was a slow burn and direction.
Yeah.
And different in direction that the band should take.
Well,
that's what I got out of the podcast with Frasco is how they were spending it.
I read Ben's message, I guess it was Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and he did take a little jab towards the end. Like he wanted to pursue stuff that was more authentic. And so I kind of, he probably couldn't resist the urge to kick up a little bit of shit on his way out the door. But that was a shame. I mean, you hate to hear people leave a band.
Right. I think he happens. Yeah. He said there's something about more. I remember that too, because that dig almost sounded like, I don't want to do all this commercial shit.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I took away from it too. We're going to go check them out, the Fox, when they come to town end of this month, or is it next month? I can't remember.
So I won't see you at Red Rocks then.
No, I wish I could.
So I won't see you at Red Rocks.
I wish. We, I had plans. I wanted to go. The layoff happened. I was like, I just can't make it. If
I'll get you on that.
I can afford everything except for hotels right now. I mean, I got to spend $2,000 on get a damn nice hotel. I'm old, so I got to have something that's nice. I'm not going to stay on a red roof or anything crazy.
Yeah, we're lucky. We have a friend that has a bunch of Airbnbs, so we're staying with the group in one and gratis. And but our payment instead is I'm renting a Sprinter van. So that's cool. From Turo, getting me a Sprinter from Turo. It's only $160 a night. So
well, I asked Ted.
But we're hot. We're gonna go straight from Turo, dropping it off at the airport. So hopefully we get the van when we arrive, and then go straight to a Mile High, see the Stones and Panic with our group, and then don't even get to go to our lodging first, straight from the airport to Mile High. So
well, it's funny.
That's going to be cool.
It's funny you said King Gizzard because I asked Ted the same questions yesterday, and that was top of his list. So now I got to go educate myself.
And the other band that I was a sleeper on and I slept on, but now I love is Futurebirds. But what's funny is, and I've been exploring their catalog because I sort of slept on them, even though I've seen them open for the Truckers way back in the day. But, you know, it's funny because all my friends that live in Atlanta and Charlotte, when I mention Futurebirds, they're like, love the band, hate the crowd.
Mm.
They're like, the crowd is like the worst of the Panic crowd, like fratty, talky, terrible. So that's interesting. Not to diss Futurebird fans on the record or anything. We'll see. I like the Disco Biscuits too, and you know their crowd has reputation for them.
I love those.
But
guys.
I feel like they're on fire. There's very few. You know, Fish is playing very close to the top of their game. Panic is playing a game, and but Biscuits are really playing some of the best shows of their career right now. And I've not listened to them in 15 years, but you know, there was a time when I did all the time, and you know, guest list to tape and all that. But I don't tape anymore. And Z-Man calls my wife Yoko. He blames her for it and says, you know, like texts her things like, "When are you going to let Kyle tape a show?" And I remember seeing him in the airport and going to Playa. Well, I don't remember what year. And so we're pulling our bags at the same time into customs, and he's like, "I bet there's no damn tape deck in there, is there, Mike?" You know.
I live in the same city as him, and I keep meaning to. I mean, I've got his number. I just haven't called because I've been crazy. But I'm definitely going to try to get him on the show too, just because he's been.
Oh, you have to. His stories are immense. He needs two hours.
Right.
He can tell you what the pizza was like at the place where he ate after 5/8/77. 5/8/77 was great, but the night before it was better. But man, Kyle, we had the best pizza at this place in Ithaca called blah blah blah.
Love it.
He remembers the pizza in Ithaca from 5/8/77. He is the best. I remember one time first of all, I also remember we caught a ride with our friend Ken, me and Z-Man and my wife at the time, Gretchen, and Ken Kirschbaum and his wife. Ken drove us from Panic to the Deepest End right after 2002 Halloween run. And Z-Man is like, "Go, go, go." You know, he's yelling directions again. And Ken's wife is like, "Slow down." And Z-Man's like, "Go, go, go." And she's like, "Slow down." And it was so hilarious. And we jump out and we run in. And you know, Z-Man was a patcher at the time. Well, Z-Man didn't buy microphones until 2007. I will say that on the record. Okay, he didn't even own them. He was a patcher. He was a patcher for the longest time. What I mean by that was he'd get there and he'd be like, "Hey, can I patch in?"
Yeah.
You know, he'd rely on the goodwill of others. And you know, there was a time when we had there was a guy in the scene who died a long time ago named Mike Remmers. But Remmers was like the god of like getting patchers a patch. Like I can remember like one of my favorite shows, if you were going to ask me about 97 shows, was 420 97. It gets overlooked. First Dying Man is at the Capitol Ballroom in D.C. And I remember getting there a little bit late, as always. And I had my little D8 DAT deck with a freaking RCA cable coming out of it. And the dude, Mike Remmers, was awesome. He was just like, "I got you, man. I'll take it. Come find me in the night. Can't miss me." And, you know, all that. And so anyway, going back to all that, you know, he was a patch rat at the time. So we roll in. I didn't even bother setting up my mics that night. I was just like, whatever. And Z-Man rolls in and he gets a patch from Charles Fox or somebody. And then right after we jumped out of the car, somebody was hit by a car.
Oh shit! Right
there on Canal Street. And there was a Panic fan, and it became a big deal, like online and everything. And I think that person actually didn't pass, but there was a lawsuit, like an injury lawsuit. And Ken and Lori like got called as witnesses.
Oh shit!
The people that drove us there, but it was, you know, it's funny. So but I've been seeing shows with Z for a long time. Club AARP over here, and he's great. So, still though, he's old enough to be my dad. And I call him Dad, like everybody else calls him Dad. And I try not to make fun of his compression socks and things like that.
I saw him at Goose at the Georgia Theater. I was standing behind him, and of course saw him and said hello. And I did not mean to get as drunk as I did that night. And I had gone to get some waters because I was like, man, I got an hour drive to get home. I'm going to sober the fuck up. And there was a girl that was kind of with them. Like, you know, there's a group of us. And I just like offered her a water, and she thought that I was trying to roofie her. And she like, and Z-Man had kind of co-signed on me like, "Yeah, I know him." And so she taps him on the shoulder and she's like, "You sure you know this guy?" I was so fucking mad. I was like, "Bitch, I was just trying to share a bottle of water with you. Calm the fuck down."
Oh my God, that's nutty. Trying to roofie them.
Yeah, come on.
Oh, awesome.
Anyway, man. I appreciate you. I knew, you know, everybody, when I started digging around a little bit, and I didn't know a lot of the, Wilker said that he used digitalpanic.org a lot as kind of his go-to.
Right.
I was aware of panicfreaks.com, but I didn't know about, there's a slew of other ones that I was not aware of. And so when I started digging around, everybody said, you need to talk to Kyle Pike. I was like, okay. So I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, the message board gods, right. It's funny because one time we didn't get a picture. I don't know what happened to the picture, but there was one time at a Merriweather string cheese show, actually, hilariously enough, because I'm the one that made the sticker back in the day with the tractor running over the hula hoop. I did that. I also did the original Nike sticker, the black and silver one. I did that art.
Love it.
I traced it from a Jackie Jasper photo. It's funny, I can tell whether it's mine or whether it's Chip Townsend's based on like the chair and shit. But yeah, that logo, I did both of those, and we sold those tractor crushing the Hooper stickers for a while on tour. But anyway, ironically enough, the string cheese show, we posed for a picture. It was Paul Glaze who started Fantasy Tour, Leonard that started Fishhook, and me, all in us posed for a picture of like the message board gods.
Oh man, if you find that,
and
share that.
No, I think Paul Glaze's wife took the picture. I'll have to ask him for it someday.
Absolutely.
But he's local to Baltimore as well. I see him sometimes at like tech events, like tech council type shit. I don't remember who he works for, his day job, but he's local too. This is the guy that started Fantasy Tour. I don't think he has anything to do with it anymore, but cool. Well, nice to talk to you too. I wanted to do a little do you knows with you, but not on the record.
No, I don't care. Go ahead.
I don't need to name my friends on the podcast.
That's cool. No, I bartended at Georgia Theater for a couple years. Before that, and this was.
So you know Paul O'Donnell. You got to know Paulie O'Donnell.
I know the name. I don't know if I knew him personally.
He was like the audiovisual director at Georgia Theater.
Oh, okay. I was so young back then, though.
Okay, gotcha. He was like, when the Georgia Theater got renovated, he was audiovisual director up until a few years ago, like maybe 3 years ago. And then he was running Chateau Elan.
Yeah,
right down over in
Brazelton.
Yep. My parents lived in Berkeley Lake.
Yeah,
for 98 to 2016. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, my parents lived there in Norcross, so I was semi-local to that area. Do you know my buddy Carson Chin?
No, again, know the name. I don't know if I know him personally though.
Okay, gotcha. He's old school Athens, so I stay with him in Cumming when we go down there now for shows and shit.
Oh, very cool. Well, next time you make it down this way, certainly give a holler, and I'd love to shake your hand and buy you a beer.
Absolutely. We don't have any plans to do Atlanta right now. Anything down that way that I could think of.
Are you going to do Milwaukee by chance?
Yeah, we usually do.
Okay.
But we've got a kid starting college in the fall, so we'll probably cut back a lot on shows and travel.
Yeah.
I imagine. Try to pull that out of our ass and use some of our panic budget.
Well, I'll ping you. I'll ping you as we get closer, and if you guys make it, let me know, please.
Yeah, definitely. We're doing a whole lot of Goose. We're doing stuff up this way, Philly,
I love those guys.
New Jersey, the Met. We're doing Jacket Met and Jacket Virginia. I love seeing Jacket too.
One last thought.
I feel like the same way about Jacket and Wilco, which is they're now at that point in their career where they put out an album every year. Mm-hmm. It's meh as hell. You search the album for the one or two things that are going to be live bangers, and then you see how that worked out. But then eventually their shows get to a point where they've just got so much material, and maybe Panic's sort of there now too, where you're like, Panic's at the point now where they pull out Old Joe and everyone's like, oh yeah, forget it just straight suck. But there's so much suck that's come out since then. It does not suck. I don't know. No. So yeah, I think that's sort of the way I feel about both Wilco and My Morning Jacket these days. But I've seen My Morning Jacket put on some of the best shows of my entire life.
Oh man, I went and saw them in Nashville 2 years ago, and it was the first time and only time I've ever seen them. We were in the pit, and it was one of the best concerts I've ever been to in my life. They blew me away. I couldn't believe just how much energy they had on stage. Or Jim James, it's just, you can't not love that guy.
Yeah, I saw him at the Met back in October, and it was insanely great. And but Also very much a tease. They were playing 2 nights, and the motherfucker teased "Touch Me, I'm Gonna Scream" like 3 times and didn't play it. Of course, they played it the next.
You're like, God damn it!
Yeah, exactly. He gets out that little keyboard thing around his waist and starts going, pop, 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 pop. And you're like, I know that's coming, and it's not coming.
Oh, that's good shit. Well, Kyle,
you were asking about other new music before we wrap.
Yeah, please.
The other band that I can't stop listening to is Krungbin. We saw them 2 weeks ago, and it was just an incredible performance. It wasn't just a show. It was like art, music, scenery, unreal. Krungbin, are you familiar with them?
No, how do you spell that?
Krungbin, Khraungbin.
Okay.
They put out a couple records with Leon Bridges that are really awesome.
Oh.
Intro to them, but really their music is like flamenco, funk, like lounge type of music.
Okay.
But it's just so good. It all sounds the same pretty much, but so good.
All right, I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, Crunk must check out.
Okay, cool.
All right, man. I will. I'll send you a link to my my Spotify so you can pull some of my playlists. Check some shit out.
Please do. Kyle Pike, so good to meet you, and I can't wait to talk to you again. I feel like I could talk to you for hours and hours and learn something the entire time.
Right on. Well, thanks for the interview. That was really cool. I appreciate it. Listen.
Have a great night.